Today's video is sponsored by AmpRoad. They provided me with this iFlow P9 Level 2 EVSE to review. Today I'm going to unbox and test this unit. I'm going to compare it with my current charging setup that uses a Tesla mobile connector. As always, I give my honest review of products whether I purchase them myself, receive them as a loaner item, or even one given to me. And with that out of the way, let's begin the review. First, I'll put some detailed stats of this device on the screen while I open up the box. It is 240 volts. The adjustable current is 24, 32, and 40 amps. The charging speed is 23, 30, and 37 miles per hour measured on my Model 3 rear-wheel drive long range. The max capacity is 9.6 kilowatts. The connector is a J1772. And for a Tesla, you need to use the J1772 adapter for it to work. The insulation resistance is greater than 1000 mega ohms at DC 500 volts. The weight is 4.75 pounds, 2.15 kilograms. Operating temperatures are from -13 to 122 degrees Fahrenheit, -25 to 50 C. Standby power is less than 3 watts. It is made in China. The IP grade is IP67. The NEMA enclosure type is 3S. It's not Energy Star rated. It is UL 2594 tested. It has a plug rating of greater than 10,000 times. And the warranty is 12 months. Inside the box, we have a black polyester storage bag for transporting the EVSE. It has 2 straps, and unzipping the front shows what we have inside. There is bubble wrap protecting the wall plug, car plug, and the main controller unit. There are 2 included bags, the first of which contains the cable organizer, where you can coil the cord and hang it on the wall. The second bag contains the wall-mounted bracket. Lastly, we have an instruction manual with detailed pictures and instructions of how to use the device and change the settings. This is an EVSE, which means it's an electric vehicle supply equipment. Some people call these chargers, but they're really fancy power adapters for the car's charging hardware. Next, I'll remove all of the bubble wrap so we can get a closer look at the device. This is the J1772 handle that plugs into the car. There is a protective rubber cap that is removed when in use. It keeps the plug area clean during storage. This is the NEMA 1450 plug that will fit into the outlet connected to a 50 amp 240 volt breaker. This is the main control unit, which contains a couple circuit boards with electronics needed for communicating and charging with the car. In the center is an LCD panel, and below that are 2 buttons for settings. I'll show you how they work later in the video. On the back is a list of product features along with an explanation of the indicator LED light colors. Blue is not connected, green, always on, means connected to the car, green, breathing, is charging, and red means failure or fault. Here is how the J1772 handle fits into the cable organizer. The extended lip on the top is where the coiled up cable rests against for storage. Press the release trigger on the top here to remove the handle from the mount. The measurements for the iFlow P9 are 9.5 inches or 24.1 centimeters in height, 4.3 inches or 10.9 centimeters in width, and 2.4 inches or 6.2 centimeters in depth. Compared to the first or second gen mobile connector, it is a bit larger in size, but still transportable. Now I'm going to weigh the iFlow P9, which is fairly tricky unless you wrap up the cord fairly tightly. And it comes out to 13 pounds, 4.2 ounces, or 6.16 kilograms. The Gen 1 mobile connector weighs 6 pounds, 8.3 ounces, or 2.96 kilograms. And the Gen 2 mobile connector weighs at 6 pounds 1.4 ounces or 2.76 kilograms. The iFlow P9 difference has a lot to do with the cord, as you will see in the next section. From what I've seen in cable measurements on different EVSEs is that manufacturers include the full length, which is the plug pigtail, the unit itself, the cord, and then the handle. I like to get a usable length, so I just measure the cord all by itself. Measuring it from where the cable starts at the control box, it goes out until I reach 22 feet 8 inches or 6.91 meters. Now placing a Gen 1 mobile connector next to the iFlow P9, I'll do the same measurement. And going all the way out to the end, I get 17 feet 8 inches or 5.38 meters. This pretty much shows the length difference. This is what the J1772 handle looks like compared to the Tesla connector. It's quite a bit bigger. The J1772 standard is a much older design. Taking off the rubber protective end cap, I'll place the J1772 adapter on to show you what it looks like where it attaches to the car. Now you really can see the size difference, putting them side by side. On the cord jacket, you can see that the specs are Type EVE, and it has 2 times 8.37 millimeters or 8 gauge red and black AC power, 1 times 5.26 millimeters 10 gauge, which is the ground, and then 1 times 1.31 millimeters 16 gauge, which is the pilot or the proximity signal, rated at 105 degrees Celsius and 600 volts. Like before, I'll place the Gen 2 mobile connector down and measure it. And at the end, it is 18 feet 11 inches or 5.77 meters, which is slightly longer than the Gen 1 mobile connector, but still shorter than the iFlow P9. While I have all 3 EVSEs out, let me measure the diameter of the charging cables. First, the P9 is 0.81 inches or 20.8 millimeters. The Gen 1 mobile connector is 0.55 inches or 14.1 millimeters. And finally, the Gen 2 mobile connector is 0.47 inches or 12 millimeters. This is the NEMA 1450 outlet by the front of my garage. I usually have my Gen 1 mobile connector mounted next to it. I'll take it down to test the iFlow P9. Regarding the outlet, the instructions suggest you use a GFCI circuit for this device. Mine happens to have a GFCI breaker, so I'm good to go. This is a NEMA 1450 outlet with a 6-gauge wire connected to the electrical subpanel that is just 2 feet away. See the video link above for the installation of this outlet. Before installation, I would suggest mounting the controller bracket to the wall. This will eliminate any strain on the plug. I attached the controller bracket with 3M command strips so that it sticks to the slat wall with no problem. I can then remove it later without any damage to the wall. For regular drywall, use the enclosed screws for mounting. The iFlow P9 unit measures 9.5 inches high by 4.3 inches wide by 2.4 inches deep. Both the Gen 1 and Gen 2 mobile connector main units measure 7.1 inches high by 3.2 inches wide by 2.1 inches deep. The cord that extends from the main unit to the outlet is called a pigtail. This measures a whopping 17.875 inches on the iFlow P9. The Gen 1 mobile connector measures 10.625 inches. And the Gen 2 mobile connector measures 4.25 inches. Earlier, I showed that the charging cable is much thicker than the Tesla mobile connectors. Even knowing that, the cable is still very pliable and nicely bends, and is easy to coil up for storage. The construction of the main unit is solidly built. There is no creaking or bending when pressing on it. Here you can see how it fits into the wall bracket. I have attached the Tesla J1772 adapter onto the end of the charging handle. The handle itself has a nice rubberized web grip. The disconnect button on top is solidly made of metal and has a loop at the end. This is to allow the use of an ordinary lock so that the handle stays connected to the adapter or, for a non-Tesla, the car's J1772 plug. I would also suggest installing the cable organizer so that you can hang the cable on the wall. For this demonstration, I will not permanently attach it to the wall. I'll be just using a hook that was already existing. If you do wish to mount it, there are 3 screws provided and they go through these holes. Then you can plug in the handle and wrap the cord around the mount here. On the main unit, there are 2 buttons for settings. Press the A button to switch the charging current mode. For example, if you want to charge at 24 amps, press it until you see 24. The settings are 24, 32, and 40 amps. Press the clock button to change the time settings. Here you can see I can press 1 through 10 and then off. This represents how long to charge and then stop. The LED light colors on the unit display the status of the EVSE. Blue means the car is not connected. Green means the car is connected but not charging. Flashing green means that the car is charging, and red means that there is a fault or error. The LCD screen is normally off. If you want to turn it on, press any of the buttons. It will then stay on for about 3 minutes. The LED lights do stay on when the EVSE is connected to a powered outlet. For the next part of the video, I'm going to record temperatures of the unit and handle. First, I'm going to get the readings while the unit is plugged in and not charging. At the end, I'll have some charts showing the results. I will now test charging at the 3 amp settings, first 24, then 32, and then finally at 40. I'll measure temperatures after 15 to 30 minutes of charging to get a steady state number. Here we go. As set by the EVSE, the amp level is 24. It is showing 6 kilowatts or 22 to 23 miles per hour charging at 24 amps and 242 to 243 volts. You can see that the EVSE main unit is pulsing green as it is charging. After waiting for the temperatures to level off, here are the results for 24 amps. One thing you need to remember is if you want to change the amp settings on the EVSE, you need to disconnect the charging handle from the car's plug. I'll go back to the EVSE and increase the amps to 32. As set by the EVSE, the amp level is now 32. It is showing 30 miles per hour charging or 8 kilowatts at 32 amps and 242 volts. And for the final test, I'll switch it to 40 amps. As set by the EVSE, the amp level is now 40. it is showing 37 to 38 miles per hour charging, or 10 kilowatts at 40 amps and 239 volts. The following chart shows readings for the plug, main unit, and handle. This is the difference from the ambient temperature. As you can see, it tops out at 17.2 degrees Fahrenheit or 9.5 degrees Celsius. Next, I will add the data from the Gen 1 mobile connector. The temps were higher as seen on the chart, a max of 35.6 degrees Fahrenheit or 19.8 degrees Celsius. Finally, I will add the data from the Gen 2 mobile connector. The temps were a little bit lower than the Gen 1 mobile connector, but still higher than the iFlow P9. Since it doesn't go up to 40 amps, the highest numbers are for the 32 amp setting. The max was 32.1 degrees Fahrenheit or 17.9 degrees Celsius. So from what I've seen, the temperatures for the iFlow P9 are very good. Next up is how to use the Wi-Fi. If you want to check the status of the charging, you can connect to the EVSE by Wi-Fi. On your phone's settings menu, go to Wi-Fi and search for a device that starts with iFlow. Then enter the original password 123456778. Open up the internet browser and type in the IP address 192.168.4.1 and press enter. Another option is to use the phone's camera and scan the QR code, and that will also bring it up. By the way, if you lose the instructions, the IP address and QR code are also on the back of the EVSE. Now you will see the main page. It will list the current status of the EVSE along with information like energy, state, charging time, voltage, current, power, temperature of the box, and system status. Below that information is where you can change the mode A, which is the amp setting. It allows hold, 24 amps, 32 amps, and 40 amps. Below that is the charge time H, which allows you to set the time period for charging. Options anywhere from 1 to 10, and then off. The gear icon on the top left is where you go to change any settings. Auto start is the first one. If this is turned on, the EVSE will start charging as soon as it's plugged into the car. If it's turned off, it will not charge. So this is a feature to prevent unauthorized charging. Next is history. This will keep track of the gross charging kilowatt hours used by the EVSE while charging the car. This is handy since the car can only account for the net charge and doesn't account for the charging losses of the EVSE. The Clear Energy button will zero out the history. You may want to do this if you record the monthly kilowatt hour usage and start over at the beginning of each month. Change password allows you to put in a new password when needed. For example, I would replace the initial password of 123456778 as soon as you get it. And finally, factory CMD appears to be a password for accessing the factory settings, not used by the user. Here you can see the app showing changes to voltage, current, and power while the car is ramping up charging to 40 amps. You can also stop charging by pressing the button in the app. To change the EVSE settings using the app, you need to place the auto start setting to off. Now you can change the amp setting to 32, for example. Then press start. Notice that the EVSE's LCD screen now shows the new amp setting and it's charging the car. For another example, change the amps to 40 and now change the charge time to 1. Press start and notice the EVSE screen is now showing 40 amps and a 1 on the top of the screen. You can also use the app to see the gross voltage and amp numbers and compare to the net numbers that the car receives. As I mentioned before, having the gross kilowatt hours gives you a much more accurate accounting of how much electricity your car is using. As far as negatives go, the Wi-Fi ability is a bit on the limited side, allowing you to just view the web page of the EVSE's settings. Maybe it can be updated someday to add Alexa or Google compatibility. The energy tracking is also limited to just the ongoing count of energy used, and it can be reset when needed. For example, write down the data and then reset at the end of each month. That said, it does keep track of the gross kilowatt hours used, which is handy since the car cannot do this. One thing I would like to see added is the ability to record individual charge session data. Another improvement I can see is adding more granular amp settings instead of just the 24, 32, and 40, but it's not that big of a deal. Overall, this is a very nice charging solution, especially if you have a NEMA 1450 outlet. On the plus side, it's a solidly built device and has a nice feel to the handle and cord. It has an IP67 rating, so it shouldn't have a problem with getting wet, but if you use it outside, it would be best to have a cover over it. And of course, inside a garage, it shouldn't have any issues. The Wi-Fi range is great. I measured over 100 feet away and still got 1 to 2 out of 3 on the Wi-Fi meter, so you can use it in your house away from the garage. The LCD display is very handy. I like how I can compare the voltage in amps going into the car, as well as the built-in temperature sensor. The charging rate of up to 9.6 kilowatts or 40 amps is great, and a nice 25% increase over the standard mobile connector that comes with the car. I saw 23, 30, and 37 miles per hour on my long-range Model 3. You can then keep your mobile connector in your car for backup and traveling, and then use this iFlow P9 for everyday charging at home. Other advantages include the longer cable length, kilowatt-hour data logging, LCD screen, and Wi-Fi. Add that to the fact that it only costs $360, makes this a great affordable EVSE to charge your Tesla and any other EV that you may have. I definitely recommend the iFlow P9 EVSE. The link for the item is in the video description. There is currently a $100 coupon, so don't hesitate to use it. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.